All right, another edition of the Rough Draft Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2, the Combine Review, and our top 5 quarterbacks of the 2018 draft class. It has been quite a while. We had a lot going on. I mostly had a lot going on, and then Andy had the plague. So that held some stuff back, and I finally got my computer back working, so that's great. But it's happy to be back and ready to go moving forward. We have under 50 days until the draft, about 47 now.
Yeah, almost 6 weeks.
So that's exciting, and we have a lot of catching up to do. So we will do that, and whoever is listening, we will bring you guys as much shows as we can up until then. So jumping into it, the combine is obviously always fun. Had a lot of guys perform well. I think a lot more guys actually underperformed, to be honest with you. And you had a lot of guys, the possibility talking about quarterbacks later on in this episode, a guy like Darnold who didn't throw, and a lot of perceptions on that. And I'll give my take on that because I wanted to hear your guys' take on that as well. But a couple guys that stood out for you guys, let's list them off. Kenny, what do you got?
I mean, we'll start with the quarterbacks just because it is kind of what we're going to be focusing on today. Really, for me, there was two main quarterbacks that overperformed and two that underperformed. I mean, I know we all know Josh Allen is kind of a freak of nature just with his arm and kind of just with his ability, but I still think he managed to overperform. He ran faster than we thought he would.
Big guy.
He's definitely a big guy. And he really proved to us that he kind of took a lot of the lessons that he was taught in the past couple of months and really focused on them, really staying more balanced so that he was coming on top of the ball and he wasn't sailing as many.
Yeah.
And that was something that I know a lot of people noticed, and it was something that I think he proved that he can be coachable. I don't think that Wyoming coaching staff is really anything to write home about.
Right.
So I think if he gets in the right system with the right coaches, it's going to prove that he can really perform better than a lot of people expect him to.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of the other guys, obviously, I know Andy's a big fan, potential Patriot over there, and Kyle Lauletta. No one really thought he was going to be the athlete.
Spider-Man.
Exactly. No one thought he was going to be the athlete that he turned out to be. And that really proved like he's not going to be restricted to be a pocket passer, even though he kind of was over at Richmond. But I think he's going to be able to prove that he can move around and he'll be able to adapt to today's NFL a lot better.
Shades of Jimmy G.
Well, that's actually someone that I link them to. I think they're very similar. FCS with a lot of similar traits. And then two of the guys that I thought really hurt their stock. We'll start with Baker Mayfield, just because I'm not too big of a fan of his, but we really thought he was going to be one of the better athletes at the quarterback position, and he came out and I think really disappointed in that aspect. He ran slower than a lot of the quarterbacks we thought were going to be average speed. He really didn't have that explosiveness and like the broad jump and that we thought that we would see from him. I mean, that's kind of his MO, is that he's going to be athletic at the quarterback position. And I really don't think that he proved enough at the combine to show us that.
The one thing I will say about Baker Mayfield is I never watched his games or his highlights and said, wow, he's an explosive quarterback. Like, you know what I mean?
No.
Like, he's not a powerful guy. So I don't think that you're going to see a lot of, like, Tim Tebow. He's a powerful guy. You watch him. He plays the quarterback in, like, a powerful position. Even, like, a Andrew Luck. He's powerful, right? And I don't think that's Baker Mayfield at all. So that, like, the thing with the broad jump and the vertical, like, I definitely understand what you're saying, but I just don't think that's his game when it comes down to it.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, a lot of people more just so the athletic aspect of it. I mean, I agree. I didn't see explosiveness from him. He's more shifty than anything else.
Right. The comps to Russell Wilson and Johnny Manziel. A lot of people thought he was them because of how his highlight reel in college, but he's not going to do any of that in the pros. So,
and that's the one thing. And you hear him say like, "Oh, I don't want to be comped to Johnny Manziel," and it's like, I think the comparison play wise is fair. Personality wise, I don't think that's. Like, I think Johnny Manziel in college was off the handlebars. Like, I think Baker Mayfield is just, he has an attitude and, like, whatever. Like, I don't actually mind the stuff that Baker Mayfield does. Of course, there's that one off the field incident he had with the cop, whatever. But, I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, you know, I don't know. I think it's an unfair comparison to compare the people. I think it's a fair comparison to compare the football player, to be honest with you. So anyway, sorry. Continue.
No, yeah, I agree with that. And then just the other quarterback that I thought underperformed, and I think we all kind of agree here, is Lamar Jackson. I mean, we know what type of runner he's going to be, even though he didn't run at the combine, but we know what he's going to bring to the table with his legs. And the question was really with his arm, and he almost kind of proved to us that he doesn't have the arm that we thought he did.
Yeah.
I mean, I still think he wasn't accurate. He didn't have the velocity or the deep throw that we thought he was going to have. But I'm interested to see how it impacts his draft, because what I was saying was he's impactful with his legs more so than his arm. Mm-hmm. So I could see some GMs being attracted to that aspect of his game and still taking him relatively high.
Yeah, I think with Lamar Jackson, I felt like I didn't even see him at the combine. That's how much I didn't think he did anything. Like, I just felt like he wasn't even there. So
he threw up a couple ducks on the deep ball.
Exactly.
We'll get into that.
Yeah. So Andy, what about you?
Yeah, for the combine, there were definitely three guys that definitely stood out to me. One guy I'm definitely looking at as a Patriots fan. I just think he's risky, but I think he could dominate in the NFL maybe as a transition to inside linebacker. Lorenzo Carter out of Georgia, former 5-star recruit. He tested 96th percentile in speed, had an elite broad jump vertical. He's a freak athlete. And when you watch him on film, they have him at edge a lot, and he really doesn't excel there. But the few snaps he's in coverage and more on the inside, he really shines. I think he's very similar to Jamie Collins. And after that athletic profile he put up at the combine, it definitely validates, I think, taking him maybe in as high as the late first. I'm a fan.
I agree with you with Lorenzo Carter. He was one of my guys as well for the combine. I watched in his 40. He ran right before Shaquem Griffin. And they were like talking about how fast that was for Lorenzo Carter. And then, of course, Shaquem Griffin comes along and shadows that. But he reminds me a lot of Leonard Floyd, except he's a lot bigger, I think, Lorenzo Carter, as far as he just looks a little bit more sturdier than Leonard Floyd did.
Yeah.
And I think if you watch the Notre Dame film of Lorenzo Carter, you'll see that he had a great game and he really played well.
He was awesome in that game.
A very good game. And I'm a big fan of Lorenzo Carter as well. So I just wanted to interject with that. So.
Then, another Georgia Bulldog. I've been a fan of him probably for 2 or 3 years now, but it was just nice to see that. As a power running back, you wonder sometimes if he has the athleticism, but Nick Chubb, if it wasn't for Saquon Barkley, he'd be the talk of the combine. Saquon, 99th percentile athleticism. Chubb came out in the 90s. He did everything you wanted to. On film, he has 3 trunk legs, sheds tackles, can run outside, can have home run runs. I love him. He's my number 2 running back, actually above Darius Geis. I'm a huge fan. And I'll be getting him in fantasy for sure.
That's it. That's 2 guys.
Oh, third one? Got it. I just wonder if you're on time.
You said 3. That's why I didn't.
But yeah, definitely a third guy is another guy I've been a fan of for a few months is Cortland Sutton out of SMU. I just think his game's so unique for a 6'3" receiver. He runs screens, and his yard after catch, his elusiveness is like a slot receiver. He reminds me of Demaryius Thomas out of Georgia Tech. I think he can really work that intermediate game. And another guy who people question his speed if he was 4'6" plus like Treadwell or maybe Mike Williams, but he came in at a good time. And then the 3-cone time was the best of the combine, 6'5". That's incredible for someone his size. So he definitely made some money.
Yeah, I think it's interesting when you brought up Nick Chubb too, because he's a guy who, coming out of high school and his first couple of years at Georgia, I mean, he was a stud. I mean, and then he got hurt. And then he kind of got overpowered by Michelle, and they started throwing the ball a little bit more once they got Fromm in there too, and he kind of fell behind the scenes there. But it'll be interesting to see how Nick Chubb kind of comes along in the process. For me, the combine, we talked about Lorenzo Carter. I really like him a lot. I thought he had a really good combine, looked very good in drills. Another guy that stood out for me was actually the safety from Penn State. The white kid, Nick, I forgot, Popke or something.
Yeah,
Apke. Yeah, he honestly he was a combine warrior. He looked good in underwear.
Dion said about him.
It was a shock that he ran that fast because he's white.
I didn't think a white guy would run that fast.
He's like, wow, I didn't think he could do that. And then Rich Eisen was like, why? Because you know why? Because he didn't want to say it because he's white. But yeah, he did very well. I was impressed by him. I actually like a running back I really like too. He didn't really do much in college, to be honest with you, but he has done really well in the Senior Bowl, and he did well at the Combine. Was Kalen Ballage, the running back from Arizona State.
Yep.
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think his body frame translates very well to the NFL. I think I'm watching him in drills. He looked very, very good. So I could see him being a sleeper guy, kind of in the mid-level rounds that you take a flyer on and comes in and plays and has an impact. And then another guy for me on the offensive line was Colton Miller from UCLA. Yeah, he really was. I mean, he's like 6'8", I think it is, and he
broke the broad jump record too.
Right. Yep. So again, talk about explosiveness, especially for that position, lower body. Colton Miller, I think, solidified himself definitely in the first round, and he reminded me. I was afraid when I first heard about him. He reminded me of the offensive tackle that came out last year from UCLA. I think that the Patriots.
We cut him. He sucks.
And he's terrible. Exactly. So when I first heard about Colton Miller, and I was like, oh no, we're gonna get the same thing out of him. But it seems like he's a completely different player, and he helped himself a lot as well. So those are my guys for the Combine. Other thing about the Combine I wanted to touch on too real quick. I wanted to ask you guys this opinion, but when you guys watch the drills and you see the quarterback drills and then you see the receiver, it's more of a quarterback drill, but the receivers are still catching it, or vice versa, where it's a receiver drill, but the quarterback's still throwing it. Do you think that NFL GMs look at the other position at all? Like they say, oh, maybe he's taking this rep off because it's not really his drill. I'm curious what you guys think about that, just because I was thinking about that, about see if maybe they put any stock in that.
I think for me, they definitely keep an eye out, but I don't know if it's necessarily like they're religiously watching them. I think what they'll notice is if a guy puts a ball right on the money, or if he throws a duck and nowhere near the receiver, like in the receiver drill, for example, they'll notice which quarterback threw it. Right. But if it's an average throw, they're not noticing what quarterback is making that throw per se, unless maybe it's a quarterback coach that's there to specifically watch a certain player.
Right. Andy, what do you think?
Yeah, I definitely think live at the Combine, they're probably focusing more on the player at hand, whether it's the receiver drill, the receiver, or the quarterback throwing the quarterback. But I know they have someone in the booth recording everything. So after the fact, they probably definitely see the receivers, I'd say, like their effort level, if they're completing the route. Also, maybe like how they're interacting with the quarterbacks, if they're talking about stuff where they're just more aloof. I could see that.
Right. And then there was the other thing that was brought up at the Combine with, and this happens, I feel like, every year, with the questions that the teams ask.
Oh, my God.
So I think no, I'm not going to get into it, but all I want to hear is, do you think that there should be something moving forward to protect the athletes and the teams? Because, like, here's a little thing I have to take. So let's say you have a staring contest with the GM. First of all, why is that important? Second of all, do you win or do you lose? Because if you win, then you beat your future boss and they don't draft you. If you lose, then you're a loser and they still don't draft you. So what do you do?
These GMs are just weirdos.
Right? Isn't it weird? It's a weird concept.
It's a very
I feel like there's no
concept.
place for it, honestly.
I know from not a fact, but Belichick's not having staring contests asking about sexuality.
Right.
GM's got to be like, I don't even know, some sketchy teams out there.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just think it's a strange aspect of the Combine that you always hear about every year.
Try to tighten that up.
Yeah.
And then, if you don't mind, there were actually, just to go back a couple steps, two guys that have been big names throughout the Combine, and obviously for other reasons. But first, we have Shaquem Griffin.
Yeah, I mean,
someone I think we have to talk about when talking about the Combine and just in general. And then I know I spoke with Andy about it, but actually Ridley, Calvin Ridley, who really was not as good as people thought. I mean, it was the broad jump, I think, where it was like one of the bottom 10 jumps for a receiver in the past 10 years or something.
And I think he even came out and said it too, that he wasn't very happy with it, and he knew it really wasn't a good Combine for him. And that's why I just think, even talking about Calvin Ridley or talking about the quarterbacks, I mean, you always have the opportunity to do it at your pro day. So I don't think it hurts to do both. I think just do both. I will get into Shaquem Griffin, but I have a hot take about the Darnold thing, about not throwing at the combine. Right. I think it's a bunch of BS to not throw at the combine because the combine hasn't changed ever since it started. You know the drills they're going to do. You train to do the 40, the bench press, the this, the that, the questions in the classroom. So So just if you're training to do that, now you got to go to, if he goes to USC on his pro day, he has a pre-scripted thing. What's the difference between that and the combine? The combine's pre-scripted too. And so, it suits him. I don't like, that's kind of like an easy cop out.
But didn't he?
That's why everyone has a good everyone has a good pro day at a quarterback position.
Right. But didn't he do some of the stuff that, like, he did participate?
He ran.
He just did. Yeah, he just didn't throw.
Right, he didn't throw. That's the part I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Him not participating as far as throwing.
I mean, obviously, I know he has that excuse because the other top quarterbacks have done the same thing in the past.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a path to follow, especially if he seems like locked in, where the Browns kind of said to him, we're going to take you.
Right.
You're our guy. I mean, maybe he doesn't have to prove it. Maybe, I don't know what really he's thinking. I think he should always throw because anytime you can prove yourself, as long as you are good enough to prove yourself, maybe he doesn't seem like the guy that's afraid to throw because he'll mess up.
I mean, there's questions about Sam Darnold. I mean, he's not like a lock generational can't miss guy.
No,
there's still.
I'm just saying the Browns.
Right, and that's why I'm saying he has no real right to say, "Oh yeah, I'm not gonna throw." Oh really? Because you're a 3-time Heisman winner and 4-time national champion. And I'm not saying like that's what you need to do to not throw at the combine, but like you didn't do much. I mean. Yeah, you're a good college quarterback. You're one of the tops in this draft, but you obviously have all the potential in the world. But I don't know. I'm a little against it. Andy, what do you think about it?
He should throw. It's just like, I don't know, these top prospects. Like he's probably going number 1 overall. They want to solidify the spot. Their agents in their ear. Don't throw. I don't know. I would throw. Josh Rosen's out there humming the ball, looking great.
Yeah,
and he's right on your tail. So. I don't know. I'd be out there and throwing the ball.
Exactly. And you know what? And talking about a guy who gave the most effort transitioning now, Shaquem Griffin, like we talked about. I mean, there's like no words besides like that's amazing. And it's awesome. It's awesome. And not to treat him like he's, obviously different, but he is. I mean, he is different. He has a unique story. And the bench press was first. And what he did in that was insane, 20. I mean, he got more than freaking fatty Orlando Brown, the offensive tackle from Oklahoma.
And I mean, obviously, I know that he's been training like this, but he didn't have a prosthetic hand when he was doing his past, doing the bench press. He had it was almost like a mat that he would press his arm up against.
Almost like a stone, it looked like.
Exactly. Yeah. So he had to get used to that, using a prosthetic hand now to do the bench as well. It's different than how he normally did it, and he's still – I mean, think about building up those muscles in half of an arm, or whatever, however much you want to say he has. But that's the impressive part to me, is it just kind of shows how determined and how hardworking he really is. Yeah. Because he could have easily just said, "I'm just going to do what I can do."
Could have Sam Darnold it.
Yeah, and I mean, I know he had a lot more to prove, but the guy's, I think, unbelievable. And you can ask. I know I spoke with Andy about this, but something that, I mean, I had my eye on him for months.
Always
but
the guy didn't have a combine invite until.
That's the amazing part to me. Wasn't he? He was the defensive player of the year for his conference,
the AAC.
Not the year that just passed, but the year before.
Yeah.
And then he comes out and proves himself on an undefeated team this year.
National champs. People
national champs. But then he doesn't get an invite. It's like that's just ridiculous to me. But I'm so happy for the kid because I think he's gonna, whether he can play at the next level, for whatever reason, I think his heart's gonna make him be able to be a main spot on a defense.
Yeah, I agree. Could you imagine being Troy Fumagalli? Has 9 fingers. He doesn't get talked about. But he's like, oh crap, Shaquem Griffin just totally stole my thunder.
Ironically, he has great hands.
He has great hands, yeah. Shaquem Griffin has a great hand.
He caught his ball.
He did. He did. I mean, and it was cool to watch. I mean, I really, and when he ran that 40, man, that was great. And then he says, "Happy birthday, mama." That was awesome. I was like ready to go run through a brick wall for the kid. And I think he's a good player. You know, I really do. I think, and that's the other side of it too.
It's not just a good story,
right? He's not just Byron Jones, who it looks good in I don't know, whatever. I think Byron Jones sucks, but anyway, I think Shaquem Griffin is a great player. I think he needs to get more recognition. And I saw an article that the other day he still said, I still wouldn't draft him as an NFL GM. You're an idiot. The guy is not just good at the guy; he's a good football player. I mean, I don't know. I think he's a good 3-4 outside linebacker, in my opinion.
Definitely. That guy is just a clickbait asshole. Let's be honest. He's just like, look at me. I want clicks because I suck at my job. Screw you, dude.
Exactly. But I mean, I really do think Shaquem Griffin fits in very well to a lot of NFL defenses, to be honest with you. And I think the right scheme and coordinator can make him work, especially in the right situations. I'd like to see him on the Giants, to be honest with you. So, especially with their new defense, 3-4, I could see him on the Jets, Pats, honestly, too.
Versatility with him.
A lot, a lot. So, I mean, what do you guys think he gets drafted? What round?
Based on what I've read on Twitter and stuff, he seems like a round 3 to 4 guy. He should be drafted second round, but he'll probably end up on late day 3. And then when he's announced, like at the end of the second day of the draft, they'll make a good thing of it. Like, and I don't know, he'll be on the stage. It'll be a good moment. I think
he'll also draft him.
Yeah, I was gonna say round 3, just because I know I've seen a lot of 3 and 4, like you were saying, but I think that all it takes is one GM to say, I really like this kid and I want to take him earlier than maybe some people thought, and that's so I think the 3rd round someone's gonna stick their neck out, so to say. And
the thing is, the kids handled adversity, like you said. On a GM, there has to be one GM out there who's gonna say, "Shit, man, like you got to root for this kid." You know what I mean? Like,
that's my point.
He's not coming back from like terminal cancer. Like his body is in good shape. You know what I mean? It's not like a Mark Herzlich scenario. So, Shaquem Griffin, obviously a really, really good story. In the combine. Any final thoughts with the combine?
Nothing much really. The only thing that definitely kind of annoyed me, which you touched on with Calvin Ridley, but he definitely gave an effort out there. A lot of these Alabama players weren't really doing like all the athletic testing. You had Rashaan Evans, he didn't run the 40. I know he was injured, so he gets a pass. But then like Minkah Fitzpatrick didn't do some drills, and I know there were some others. And then they had a pro day 2 days after, and they still didn't do it. And then Alabama announces we're gonna have a 3rd pro day like March 28th. So I'm like, it's classic Alabama. They think they're like a pro football team, which rightfully so. When you have 6 natties, you can do that. But like, you need 2 pro days. You're not running the combine. I get it. Okay, you need maximum training, but it's just like it's such an Alabama thing.
It is.
But that's the thing. Also, it's like it's an Alabama thing. But these players, I know they played on Alabama for the last, say, 3 years. But like, you're trying to prove yourself now for the future moving forward for the NFL. You're not trying to prove yourself as an Alabama player.
Yeah,
like exactly. It's a completely different like atmosphere than you're just complete. People are going to look at you and say like, "What an ass."
Yeah, I mean, some of those guys only play for a year, and then it's just like, oh, now he has a great season because he's been on the practice squad, as you can say.
But I mean, as long as you play a certain position at Alabama, people are going to take you because they have a history there, and see, that's behind good guys.
See, that's the thing. Even going back to the Shaquem Griffin thing, like people are going to sway away from him because of his hand, but people will go towards an Alabama player because he went to Alabama. And it's just that's
would have been an animal in Alabama. Oh,
what's that?
He would have been incredible with that front 4.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, but I'm just saying it's just like that mentality.
Yeah, exactly.
Saying it's just like they're almost set up to they're like coddled into the NFL.
Yeah,
and, obviously they're coached well. There's no doubt about it. But yeah, I agree. I'm not a big fan of guys who just don't do certain drills. Again, if you're hurt, fine. But are people unless you like really like tank it? Again, like Orlando Brown, or honestly, I thought Minkah Fitzpatrick only getting 14 reps at 225.
He has a lot of mini red flags. We'll get into one day on the safety show, but yeah, he's been skipping drills. He hasn't been performing that great. And then obviously, this is just a minor nitpick too. If we're on the topic, just quick, like Saquon Barkley, absolute freak. He tested as the most athletic running back of all time. This is just the most minor nitpick, but as like a huge Patriot nerd. elusiveness 3-cone. I wish he did run the 3-cone. I know it doesn't matter. He's a great receiver on film, but it'd be nice to know if he has like 6'6" 3-cone, 6'9". I'm just curious because on film he's a great receiver. I'm curious why I didn't run that, but not a big deal.
Right. And that's funny because a lot of times with the being a good receiver, now you hear a lot of Browns fans you see on Twitter. They're like so. Some are obviously actually anti Saquon, especially now after the Landry trade, because like they were like, well, Duke Johnson does the same thing that
not quite
that Landry does. I'm like, no, he doesn't. First of all, second of all, yeah, I think like they're like Duke Johnson has now become like Jesus in Cleveland, and they're like, oh no, like we've already replaced him with Jarvis Landry. Now you're going to replace him with Saquon Barkley. It's like, yeah,
some analytic people think he's the
we
GOAT.
are like, give me a break. So. Anyway, so that's Indy this year. It's always a good time. Moving on, top 5 quarterbacks. So the number 1 position, as always, in the draft.
Love it.
And I will. I kick it off to Ken to start. Andy, I'll kick it off to you to start your top 5.
All right, let's definitely start 5-1.
5-1.
5-1. Yeah. Yep.
All right. So I'll starting at 5. A guy I mentioned earlier is Lamar Jackson for me. I think I'm not a fan of necessarily how consistent he's going to be throwing the ball, but I definitely think if they tell him use your legs, they tell him to scramble, but once he gets outside the pocket to look downfield, because guys are going to be breaking open, if he can extend plays, he's going to – I mean, there's going to be guys wide open where if you don't make the throw, you don't deserve to be playing in college, let alone the NFL. So he's proven he can at least make some of those throws. And I'm looking forward to really seeing how he progresses if he gets a coach that is going to really work with him on maybe his throwing motion or release or whatever it may be. But for me, a comp for him is I have kind of 2. I'll start low end with RG3. I think he can bust. He can get injured, and all of a sudden.
So what RG3 should have been, what he was going towards.
To an extent, but he also has the risk factor that RG3 had by getting hurt if he's going to be running a lot. Yeah. And then I've also seen some comps that I partially agree with. If he can really work on his throwing, he can, to a little bit of a lesser extent, is like a Cunningham type player, where he kind of has a similar build. I don't think he's going to be that good, but I think he has the potential upside if they can really work with him to have that type of mentality and play the same way Cunningham did. Andy.
Oh, we do our 5.
Oh, you want? 5. I thought we were going 5, 5, 5, 4, 4, 4.
No?
Okay. Well, my apologies. I'll go to 4 then. I'm gonna go right to guy Andy. Andy's a big fan of Patriots. Kyle Lauletta. I think he's actually going to be. He's impressed the hell out of me ever since I saw him at the Senior Bowl. I mean, this kid is. I remember watching him a tiny bit when he played at Richmond, but like the kid makes throws on the money, and to top it all off, he tested like ridiculously well for a quarterback, athleticism-wise at the combine. I really think this guy, when he gets put in the right system, he's going to have some ups and downs. Like my comp for him is Jimmy G, and I still think everyone's high on Jimmy G. He's probably going to come back down to earth. He's going to throw a couple more interceptions. He really puts the ball out there that's very risky, and I think Lauletta might fall into that kind of realm a little bit because of just the competition he's played against in the FCS, but I definitely think he's going to be someone that can really step up for them and for whoever takes him. And I think in the future, he's definitely going to be a guy that can step in.
Mm-hmm.
Number 3 is actually Sam Darnold. I had, even though I think he's going to go possibly 1 overall, I definitely think that Darnold's going to be someone that the issue is if he then does go to Cleveland, even though they have good weapons, I'm a little worried just because
got to be ready in a year because they're going to play Tyrod this year.
Right. And that's something that I think he can be a great quarterback, and he makes some throws that literally your jaw just drops because he puts it between 3 defenders on the money, and he amazes you. And then another time he throws a ball into double coverage and it's not on the money and it's picked off. He's got to learn to not force some passes, but I mean, he's obviously one of the main three that a lot of people have been talking about. If you add Baker Mayfield into that, you can. I'm not a fan, as you'll see as I finish up my top 5. But moving on. So what I forgot to say was, if he goes anywhere other than Cleveland, I think he's actually going to be really good. And one of the guys that I actually comp him with is Romo. I've seen that actually 1 or 2 places now. I think he has a very similar game as Tony Romo did. Hopefully not as an announcer, but as a player. And then number 1 and number 2 are like right next to each other for me. The main 2 are Rosen and Allen. I think number 2, I'm going to have to go with Allen just because I'm not so positive as he's much more risky than Rosen to me.
Yeah, he is.
His ability is through the roof. Like, this kid, if he pans out, can be one of the best quarterbacks of all time with his ability, which amazes me, and I think he's going to be a stud. I actually comp him with Favre, is someone who I see him very similar to. He's going to force passes. He's going to think his arm can do more than it actually can, and he's going to try and rocket balls because he has that arm. But if he pans out, if he continues working on what a lot of the scouts and a lot of the coaches are telling him to,
right,
I think that's going to be just amazing for him, and he can skyrocket and be one of the best quarterbacks in the league within a year. I think this kid is better than a lot of people think, and I'm really amazed at to see what he will be able to do.
Right.
And then to top it off, I'm going to have to go with Rosen. He's just the most pro-ready. He can make throws that the others can't. He's confident in how he throws the ball, and he can pinpoint it wherever he wants. And he can make every throw on the field, and to me, that's the biggest thing, and he knows he can. I know he's had some issues coming out talking about, well, I don't want to play for Cleveland, or I want to make sure I play for the right team, etc. Yeah. Which is fine.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
no, I agree.
Why would you want to play for the bad, like a not good fit team for yourself?
I agree. But it's kind of tough coming out like a top pick like that, saying something where I don't want to be taken by. I know who's number 1. But my comps for him are on the low end, a Cutler type player. Just he will force some throws because he knows he can throw it.
Sure.
He can thread the needle, and the issue is if he forces that, in the NFL, some might get deflected, tipped up, intercepted, and be going the other way.
Actually, I can see that a lot more with Allen because he has the arm strength.
Yes, I know. So, yeah,
like you said,
both of them I think are similar in that aspect where they will force those because they have the arm and they know they have the ability.
Matt Stafford.
Exactly. And then actually, and you might laugh at this one, but if Rosen pans out and he really reaches his top potential, I could see him playing very similar to it like a Brady, where I'm extremely high, where I think he's going to be able to. I don't know how his leadership skills will be with like Brady's are, but he can make every throw on the field. And
Randall Cunningham, Brady.
Randall Cunningham. There's got a lot of comps in this top 5.
Well, I was
a lot of legendary comps.
I was told to do comps, and I actually because I'm putting out there what I think these guys can be. I've also put some ones out there that are lower because I think that they're risky, and
nobody's tongue.
We'll see.
No Jake Locker comps yet, though.
No, not yet.
No. I mean, this is also my top 5 of a really good QB class that I like.
Yeah.
And you'll see I really hate a lot of the other quarterbacks, and we'll get to that at a different time. Notice the lack of Baker Mayfield in this. You guys know my thoughts. Yeah, that's. I don't want to go too far into that right now. But yeah, so those are my top 5s. I know I have a lot of high comps, but I also believe that on the high end, this is one of the best quarterback classes I've seen in a long time. And if they can pan out, I think it can almost replace what we've kind of been missing with Manning out of the league. You lose Breeze and Brady are leaving soon. Yes, Andy, Brady's leaving soon, and we're going to need those types of quarterbacks to really step in because we've been missing that. I think in the last couple of years we haven't had any young quarterbacks that have
even Andrew Luck has never really panned out, to be honest with you. So
we don't have that big 3 that solidified. I mean, I know you have Rodgers, but even Like I'm talking about a group of guys that are all right the same age that are going to be even or just similar ages that are just going to be able to compete for years to come, which is better for the NFL, as you guys know.
Right. Nice. All right. So with that first top 5, Andy, let's hear your top 5.
So just as a overview in this class, it's definitely reminds me of the 12 draft, where probably the deepest class of our lifetime. Obviously, I had Andrew Luck, but the key in that draft was you had Kirk Cousins going in the 4th round, Russell Wilson 3rd round, and then obviously Resident Eagles and Foles in the 3rd round. Bowl champion. But
he caught it.
A lot of depth. I think the draft will definitely produce maybe not like an all-pro quarterback, but I think there's going to be maybe 5 to 7 standards. I'm a big fan. So to kick it off at tier 2, my 5th quarterback, early round 2, grade Aletta out of Richmond. I'm just surprised how these type of quarterbacks. He looks like a polished NFL quarterback. He has great reads with his eyes, goes through situations. Awesome intermediate accuracy. His velocity is pretty good. He's only 6'2", and his arm strength is definitely below average. It won't kill him, but he's not coming 60 yards. But his athleticism definitely shines the combine, and I think he compares favorably to Alex Smith, Kirk Cousins. I see Jimmy Garoppolo, and I don't know if he has the release or the arm strength of Jimmy G, but as FCS quarterback, I the comparison. Then moving on to quarterback 4 is Baker Mayfield, Oklahoma. He's obviously, we know he's very polarized. People have him the number 1 overall pick. PFF has him that high, for instance, and I just don't see it. He's definitely late first round for me because he has a lot of good quality, great velocity. His arm strength came in above average. He like 59 miles an hour. That surprised me. Actually, he has that edge. But then I just see a lot of holes or risks. Like obviously, you have the history of the 12 quarterbacks. They just always falter. And I don't like his reaction pressure. Like when there's people in his storm lines coming up to him, he either takes the sack, holds on the ball. I don't really like that. And his action definitely takes.
I will say, but what's one thing that they say about like a lot of guys that they just get rid of it and they make bad decisions and then they turn the ball over. So sometimes I think as an NFL, I think personally, as a scout, sometimes depending on the clock situation, you don't take a sack, but I'd much rather have a quarterback take a sack and be smart with the football and give the team a better chance to win rather than just chuck it up and then it gets turned over, in my opinion.
That's fair. Definitely. It's just about his internal clock. I think around the 3-second mark, he doesn't throw the ball away. He like tries to make it. I think that can definitely be trouble. And just in general, 6 feet. I know people height doesn't matter. Breeze. Well, one's the greatest. Talking to another one's the most accurate quarterback of all time. Well, height does matter. The quarterback. I can see him panning out as an NFL comp. Maybe Case Keenum definitely fits. You know, they both played in that spread and shoot it out type offense in college. Undersized, but I don't know if I draft him as a franchise QB. And then to end tier 2 is Josh Allen. There's not a lot to say about him. Everyone said it. You know his game. 6'5", fast, strongest arm maybe since like John Elway or Brett Favre. Absolutely hums it. His pocket presence is shaky. Reaction pressure is shaky. His accuracy is kind of a mess in the middle area of the field, but he has good deep accuracy. I think he has a lot of stuff to fix, but if you're willing to take him and he hands out, his upside is the best quarterback in the league. So the team's definitely going to take a chance, and I haven't ranked this high solely on upside. His floor is bust. Kyle Bowler, big blocker, but he's mega talented. I think his game can't translate. So then tier 1, you got the California boys. Sam Darnold, USC number 2. I like pretty much everything his game except his release. That long wind. I just think that could lead. And then obviously the difference between him and Rosen, the ball over a lot. But he has the arm to make all the throws, all three levels of the field. He's great under pressure. That's what I love about him. USC's line wasn't very good, but when he was under pressure, he improvised, definitely guys downfield higher than that. And I think he reminds me of Phil. You know, he's been dealing with a crap whole line, well, now LA for years, and he's been just a tier 2 great quarterback, and I think that's what's taken off from there. And then obviously, quarterback one, my number one overall player, highest graded quarterback in 4 years. I love him, Josh Rosen. He has the size, the footwork, the release, the arm strength to go anywhere. Elite accuracy. Except in the NFL, he's top quarterback in accuracy. I just think people overthinking this. His team was awful at UCLA, and
his O-line sucked.
What's up?
His offensive line and his offensive weapons just sucked.
Oh, it was so bad. He had lastly and then his game 2 years ago, he almost died. That was awful. Myles Garrett was wrecked. But I just love him. I think the NFL top is probably Eli Manning on his good days. Massive. But I just really like him. I think he's going to step into the franchise quarterback. I could see him being top 5 in 3 years. I don't get the negative character. I know he's like a little weird. Talks about like saving the planet and all that stuff, but he's a millennial. That wouldn't get to me.
I mean, at least he's not getting arrested.
Exactly. It's nothing bad. It's just like hot tub in the He reminds me of Aaron Rodgers. A little eccentric, a little cocky. I like it.
Yep, I agree with that.
You have to be cocky to be a good quarterback in the league.
Exactly, you do. You have to take chances at times.
Very humble. He does not talk trash.
I think if Josh Rosen gets a good offensive line, he probably won't know what to do with himself. But you know, so all right. So my top 5 is actually a lot different than your guys's, only because
unacceptable.
I know. Sorry, I don't have Josh Allen in my top 5. I'm actually not a Josh Allen fan at all. I think if you just look at his production. At high school and college, it's not there. And I think he has the big arm. Yes, he has the size, definitely. I think he's just I think his best, I will give him credit. I think his best football is ahead of him. But I just don't think, and maybe it's just where he played at Wyoming, but in my opinion, that's not an excuse, because that's what people said about Joe Flacco and Carson Wentz and, you know, Warren Moon, Steve McNair, it's not an excuse. If you're good, you'll put up the numbers in different situations and no matter where you are. Did he dominate the Mountain West? I mean, not really. Yeah, he was good. I'm not, again, I understand he's got a rocket arm, draftjoshallen.com, like he's a winner or whatever. Like, that's great. But like, there's a reason he didn't get any offers out of high school. And there's a reason he went to Wyoming after JUCO as well. So, I think his best football is definitely ahead of him. I think he can definitely make all the throws, as we know. I just think sometimes his accuracy is off. I don't like his decision-making. I'm just not that big of a fan of his. So getting into my top 5, one that you guys did not have on your top 5. Although I will say real quick, I do like Kyle Lauletta. He's not my top 5, but he's definitely a fringe guy, and I think he could be borderline 5 with my guy who's number 5. So my number 5 guy, I know may cause a lot of stir, but Mason Rudolph. I like Mason Rudolph a lot. I know people compare him to Bryce Petty. What's the difference between him and Bryce Petty when he comes to the league? I understand that comparison, but I think it's a Big 12 thing. I think Mason Rudolph has great size. I think he moved very well. He performed very well at the combine. I think he's got a big arm. I just like his pocket presence. I just like what he does. I think he has a lot of upside. Kind of reminds me similar also to the way people talk about him now, is a lot like Davis Webb last year. I think he could be very good. It kind of reminds me of Josh Freeman. The way that he plays, of course, Josh Freeman, the good Josh Freeman, not the Vikings and Giants Josh Freeman. But he kind of reminds me of. Number 4, I have Lamar Jackson as well. I think Lamar can be a good NFL quarterback. I think, again, you put him in the right situation, where he's not gonna. I think he's going to be smart. I think he's going to be that quarterback that finally learns to use his running ability in the smart sense. I definitely think he could be overzealous and hurt himself because he wants to show up the teams that pass him in the draft and all that stuff. But I think he reminds me of course, a lot like Michael Vick, Pat White. I mean, you could talk about all those kind of quarterbacks. That's just what it is. What he is. That's just the kind of quarterback that he is. He had a very good, obviously, junior season, and senior season was a little bit more quiet, but a little bit more production as well. Throwing the ball, I think he was more of just a single threat at times, just running the football. But like Lamar a lot, I think he can definitely be a good starting quarterback in the NFL. So he's my number 4. Number 3, I got Baker Mayfield. Andy, I mean, you touched on it a lot with Baker. Some of his, decisions people will say aren't the best off the field. Again, compared to Johnny Manziel, I just think the kid is a competitor. He's a winner. He has a cannon of an arm. Yeah, I mean, he didn't run through the roof. I think the difference with Baker is he's not quick. He's not explosive, like I talked about earlier. I think he's fast. He can get out of pressure. He could feel the pocket, and he could throw. And a big thing that question with him was, can he take a snap under center? He showed he could do that at the Senior Bowl. He gets NFL coaching. He'll be able to do it on a more consistent basis. Who would I have him comp to? So I have him as a lesser version of Russell Wilson. I think that's just really what he is. I think, again, Andy, like you touched on, he's the greatest escape artist since Fran Tarkenton, Russell Wilson, right? But Baker Mayfield is not going to be that good at it. Because, again, Russell Wilson, he's explosive. Russell Wilson's a big dude. He's got that baseball frame. He has big legs. Baker Mayfield really does not. So, again, talk about the explosion at that position and the size difference. And that, I think, helps Russell Wilson as well compared to Baker Mayfield. But I think Baker Mayfield could be, a good NFL starter and potentially maybe make some Pro Bowls, again, if he's in the right situation. But, again, I think a lot of those 3 guys I just mentioned, I think they have to be in a good situation rather than they make the situation good for themselves, if that makes sense. And then my last 2, Darnold and Rosen, 2 and 1. Darnold, I think, again, you sit him for 2 years. I think a team like, a team that has a veteran quarterback that he could learn from and do well in. I mean, not too many people could fall in a situation like Aaron Rodgers did with Brett Favre, but I think that would be a perfect scenario for a guy like Sam Darnold. But I think with Darnold, he has the big frame, of course. People say Ben Roethlisberger. Andy has left the podcast for good.
He's trying to work on his mic over there. It was echoing a little bit earlier.
Technical difficulties.
So he's trying to move it around, see if he can get a better read from it. Better sound.
So that's okay. So we will continue with Sam Darnold. So yeah, obviously he has a big frame, big body. He's pretty good at escapability in the pocket. Unlike Josh Rosen, who's my number 1 quarterback, has a good arm. Again, I think he could definitely, with some coaching, he reminds me a lot like an Andrew Luck, especially with his frame and his ability to kind of escape and finagle throughout the pocket. And then my number 1, Josh Rosen. I think he can make all the throws. He's the best pure passer in the draft. He just looks fluid doing it. He's got the NFL quarterback stature, the size. I'd like him for the Giants. I think you put him with Pat Shurmur. And I think he could be a lot like a Carson Wentz, Eli Manning type quarterback. I see Carson Wentz and Eli Manning a lot in his game. That's what I would comp him to. Except the only thing with Carson Wentz is that Carson Wentz can really run and use his legs. I don't think Rosen can really do that as much. So that's my 5 guys. And so that's the top 5. So we listed off an interesting group. Like I said, didn't have Josh Allen, so
we all have one or 2 in there that was different.
Yeah,
so.
Which is good. It's good for the show.
I mean, you don't want everyone having the same
right.
rankings.
Top 5, that'd be weird.
Then the draft would be boring.
Then it's fixed. And then we don't have to watch the draft. Then we don't have to have any
we know where everyone's
videos.
going, right?
Yeah, we don't have to watch my reaction videos. So
Just wait. If something goes bad at 6, you'll see a new side of me.
So, and so of course we'd be remiss with talking about the draft this week. Coming up is the NFL free agency, and that I don't think I will be signing Andy Prowse's mics at all because they're definitely vet minimum deals. No, but I think the NFL free agency obviously sets up the draft for teams moving forward, and it'll definitely be interesting. This past week, we had a ton of moves made by the Cleveland Browns, a move made by the Giants, and a move made by we had the Rams make a couple moves, and we had the Eagles.
Well, the Seahawks.
The Seahawks.
With a lot of there.
Yep, Seahawks, Eagles, and the 49ers most recently just signing Richard Sherman. So he was cut, and the Legion of Boom is now over in Seattle, and Michael Bennett goes to the Eagles. Alec Ogletree goes to the Giants from the Rams. Marcus Peters trade finally technically complete, going to the Rams, and so is Aqib Talib.
Yep.
So that'll be an interesting secondary.
Wade Phillips.
Wade Phillips is going to have fun with
back.
that.
He's back.
Yeah, and I mean, that defense really wasn't that terrible. That secondary is, I think, the best in the league now, with John Johnson and LaMarcus Joyner. And then you have those two guys at the cornerback position, excuse me. So, let me see.
I want to.
Go ahead, yes.
Want to wait. Trying to get Andy back in here, because one of the major things I wanted to talk about, free agency wise, was I was really interested with how everything went down with Richard Sherman, but we'll touch upon that when we get Andy back over here. We'll start with just the Browns in general. I think they're trying to develop a spot where now if you go out and get the quarterback of the future, you give him a year to kind of get accustomed to the system. He all of a sudden has these good weapons with, depending on if you draft Barkley or you keep Duke Johnson, whatever you want to do. I mean, I think it's going to set up nicely. 2 weeks ago even, we were sitting there saying if you're a quarterback or you're anybody and you're doing everything you can not to get drafted by the Browns at 1, and now all of a sudden that changes. You have those weapons, and you really have – it almost seems like a nice place to be. I mean –
yeah, the good offensive line.
Cleveland itself isn't a nice place to be, but now playing for the Browns all of a sudden isn't so shitty.
But, it's funny. And it's funny. Okay, so I will say, though, I feel like the Cleveland thing that will happen to them is that it will suck. Like, the team will suck. It will, no matter who they have, it'll just suck. Like, there's been years where they've been like, oh, they have $100 million in free agency. They go out and sign this guy, that guy, this guy, and then they just
seem to always do the wrong moves, or they just can't.
Wow,
they can't come together. I don't know exactly what it is.
And I will say though, with the Browns too, is everyone is like obviously quick to say like, wow, that was all Sashi Brown, and like, yeah, part of it is definitely it was Sashi Brown, but like Sashi Brown never would have executed those trades that John Dorsey did. So, yes, that's great that Sashi put them in the position to make those trades, but he didn't execute those trades. And I don't think he would have, to be honest. I think they really would have kept those picks, kept trading picks for picks and picks and picks. And it would just be
keep saying about the
lottery of picks. Yeah, right. So it would always be but I think that's what Cleveland needed. They needed a GM who was going to come in and do that. Looking at another team, obviously, I think the second most cap space is the Jets.
Yep, Jets are up. They actually came out today saying they're going to make a big splash first day of free agency, and
Kirk Cousins, breaking news to the Jets.
We'll see. I mean, wouldn't be bad. I'd be perfectly okay with that. I prefer going after a quarterback because, like I said, I think this is at 6. You're getting one of those top 3 guys that I have up there, and they're all difference makers and can be franchise quarterbacks for a lot longer than Cousins can at 29. You know. So that's the biggest thing for me, but we'll see as a lot of these teams start to develop and who they're signing in free agency. We'll really get to see what it comes down to, like where these teams looking to go in the draft. Where it's going to spin for us here doing the podcast is you see all of a sudden, like, if the Jets go out and get, say, A-Rob, they go get a cornerback or 2 or whatever they end up doing. They don't get a quarterback. They get a cornerback, but they don't go get a quarterback. Right. They don't get Cousins, or they don't go get Keenum or Bradford or Teddy Bridgewater. Then all of a sudden you sit there and you say, we know they're going hard after that quarterback. That's what pick six is. They're getting a quarterback.
Would anything be more New York Jets, though? I can just see this on the wall now.
I don't even want to talk about it. No,
and
okay,
they sign like Tremaine Johnson.
Right.
Great.
Tremaine.
They sign Allen Robinson. Great.
And
then they sign like Case Keenum, the 1 year wonder. Or they bring in Mike Glennon for the big split. Like that would just be yeesh.
Knowing the Jets, it's what we've find a way to screw up. But yeah, I mean, like I said, well, that's all going to come to fruition in the next couple days. We're going to see what teams are thinking, where they're going in the draft, and how they're looking to
set up their boards.
Yeah, exactly, and pursue the team for next year, and whether they're trusting more of a Cousins, or I mean, obviously it's up to Cousins really what he wants to do, but it's going to come down to that's going to show us really what teams are thinking in terms of the draft. But now we have Andy back. Hopefully, the mic's not going crazy on him.
No,
that's better. It sounds better.
Echo. This is so stupid. The friggin' people make this crap to buy it, and it fails you in the biggest moments. It's like Landon Roberts and friggin' Nick Foles. Dude, let's run the Mike. Sorry,
but Foles didn't fail them.
Oh no, Foles did great.
Yeah, he caught the ball.
I don't get why it's screwed up. We'll edit this one. Great. Sorry, guys. You know,
That's fine.
So we were talking about free agency when you were getting mic'd up for NFL FX. But anyway, so what do you want the Pats to do? Give me a couple guys that you think that they're targeting, maybe to set up their draft board, and how you think they'll set it up.
But yeah, obviously, it was a good move. We desperately needed a nose tackle. Long Branch decided to decline. Okay. But I definitely want Avery Williamson out of Titans. Great middle linebacker. Get back to stopping the run and not getting gashed by LeGarrette Blount. I think if you start there, the domino effect will be third and long. Get the young pass rushers out there. Boy, I definitely want that. It depends. We don't have a lot of cap. We can't do big moves. So we're not like the Jets over there. Sign everyone in the mother.
Yeah, we were just talking about that before too. And for me, with the Giants, I would really like. I think it's seems to be that they're going to go after and probably sign Andrew Norwell. That's what apparently all signs point to that. The left guard from the Carolina Panthers, All-Pro. Of course, it would help the offensive line. I'm under the impersonation that what I would do if I'm playing GM, I would go out and sign, lesser known guys, but still not bad. Quality guys like Jack Mewhort, Klein, the guard from the Titans. You can get guys like that for a little cheaper. You could almost get two of those guys for the price of Andrew Norwell, and they're still, of course, they're not all pro players, but they're still going to be an upgrade for the Giants and still a quality upgrade. I think they have more than obviously one hole to fix. But again, if you can get two birds, one stone in that sense in the free agency, then it could set up the draft. If you can get a guy like Cam Fleming and, Jack Mewhort again, and then you get the right tackle spot, your left guard spot, and then you draft Quentin Nelson, let's just say at 2, or they trade back at 6. And then, you really have good pieces on that offensive line now to really, you have 3-4 good pieces, so there's not really so much of a weak link. I definitely think that's something I would like if I'm the Giants. That's the approach I would take in free agency. Potentially another guy, Joe Berger, who played for Pat Shurmur in Minnesota, and then maybe like a Jerick McKinnon type running back, and bring back Orleans Darkwa, who's a restricted free agent as well. So that is my take with free agency. It'll be interesting to see what they do. Probably bring in another corner now too. Maybe bring back Ross Cockrell now that they released DRC today. And there'll be more cuts to come, I'm sure, for them as well. So, So I think that's any final thoughts, guys? Well,
just the one thing that I did push back because we were waiting for Andy.
Yep.
Is I touched upon the Richard Sherman whole extravaganza that was going on. And I was just kind of curious what your guys' thoughts were, how he comes out, he says, I want to play for a team with
contender
with a contender, but like with a great quarterback, he says. And then he goes and he has all these alleged like meetings he's scheduling and the visits, and however you want to go about it. And then like all of a sudden he's like, literally it felt like the 24-hour span. He goes, "Oh yeah, I'm visiting with the 49ers. Oh yeah, I'm signing with the 49ers." And it was just like, to me, it was almost like out of left field. Like I really didn't see that coming, and it kind of, the deal he got is really gonna, you can see how it's gonna start pushing open the market and how people like. I think he got paid a lot more than a lot of people thought.
Where he's at in his career.
Exactly, and I think that's gonna be. I know the cap's going up, and a lot of teams have a lot of cap space, and I think that's gonna bode well for some of these other guys like Butler or Johnson or whatever, who it's going to be. You're going to see them get a lot more money now because he almost like set the bar. And those players, I think, right now in their career are better than Richard Sherman. So
yeah, I agree. I think obviously a big attraction to him going to the 49ers is he's from California, right? He went to Stanford. John Lynch went to Stanford. I'm pretty sure their D coordinator was his D coordinator at Stanford, or his secondary coach he was his D coordinator at Stanford. So obviously he's familiar there. And I think they're a team on the rise, to be honest with you. Of course, Jimmy G is playing well. So I think he sees that as an opportunity to get it on with a quarterback who's ascending. It'll be interesting. I think there's a lot going on in Seattle. I actually don't think that college coaches do very well in the NFL as far as player development and management. I think that they become too player friendly, and then they let the players kind of run things, and then it kind of gets overwhelming, and then they say, well, we got rid of everyone. So then it's just like becomes a big dysfunction. So yeah, I think that's definitely interesting. Andy, what do you think about that with Richard Sherman?
Yeah, I just echo. No thoughts. Echo. Quit.
Wow, we have no echo.
Okay. We didn't hear an echo from you, dude. He doesn't want to talk because he's afraid of the echo.
He's over.
All right.
All right. Well, that,
on that note,
episode 2 is in the books. See you guys maybe next week, maybe another episode this week. We will see. TBD.
Hopefully soon.
Adios.